Hello, friends, and welcome back to another video about Adobe InDesign. Today, we're going to be talking about object styles. Object styles is one of the really simplest ways to create depth and dimension in your documents. These can be used in a lot of variety of ways, and I want to go through the basics for you on how to manipulate, add, and save object styles. Now, there is an object style panel that you can open up underneath Window, Styles, and you can open the Object Style panel. You are going to need this at some point, so it's probably best to go ahead and open this up, and I'm going to drop it right here in my collapsed panels so that I have access to it. However, whenever you select anything that an object style can be applied to, underneath the Properties panel, a little FX option automatically populates in order for you to be able to use it. So we're going to start with some drop shadows. I will tell you, these are my favorite. I use them probably more than any other effect in all of the programs. I use these quite often. And I've set some different settings for you just so that you can manipulate the settings. And I want you to see what some of your choices are. So first, I'm going to change my opacity to 60%. And I'm going to change my X and Y offset to 4, just because I don't want a super intense shadow. In my opinion, drop shadows should be fairly subtle. In all reality, I do more like a 2 if it were me doing the design. I just think less is always going to be more with a drop shadow. But for today's activity, we're going to do a 4 by 4. And then we're going to change our angle to 115 degrees. One of the things to note that when you do one angle, and on any object, it's automatically going to do the same angle for everything else. So we are going to set this here. The other thing I want you to note is you can change the color of your drop shadow, which is quite nice. And you can change what's called the spread and the noise. The spread is going to be kind of how far out the shadow would be. Again, I like a little more subtle. And the noise is almost kind of like a pixelation. You can kind of see it shifting there on my tulip here. But I like to kind of leave these the way they are. I also sometimes will turn my size here of the shadow just down a little bit, just depending. To me, this number and the offset number should correlate. And then I'm going to say, okay, oop, this changed. Let me change that back because I was messing with stuff. There we go. And I'm going to say, okay. Now I'm going to do the exact same. You're going to do the exact same one here for the secondary image. In order to apply the same look, we do want to kind of maintain consistency in my opinion. I just think that that looks best. And then when I change this, it's going to change all of that. I'm going to change 60 and I'm going to say, okay. We're going to add a rectangle behind our two images here just so that you can maybe see that pop. Don't put anything crazy. And I'm going to do a fill out of my image here personally. Oops, that's not what I meant to do. I'm going to do a fill out of my color here. I'm probably going to choose this kind of yellowy color here. That looks kind of nice. I'm going to turn my stroke off and then I'm going to right click and I'm going to arrange send to back so that we can see that shadow pop off that yellow. Again, you can choose whatever color you want. It doesn't have to be the yellow. If you want coral or you want the purple, it's completely up to you. All right. So some of the other options that we're going to explore, and I'm not going to go through all of them because I genuinely want you to be able to manipulate these yourself, is we're going to add a stroke and an outer glow. Now, the outer glow is similar to a drop shadow, except for it's just a little different. So we're going to set up, I'm going to choose yellow. I'm going to choose a 3-point pixel stroke for the image. I'm sorry. And then we're going to change it to like a 10 point, just so it's a little softer. And you can see that changing as I go. And I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to put it on my stroke here, which is 3. Again, you can choose whatever color you want, but I do want you to see how is the outer glow different than the drop shadow we used above. We're going to do the same thing on the secondary image. Again, it's up to you what color stroke you put on here. Now let's apply some drop shadows. I've given you in the the object style panel, I've given you a pink object style and a blue object style. And I just want you to see what I added for you. And this is really convenient. So you can save up object styles and move them to other documents and other people. And what I like about that is if I know I'm going to be using the same style over and over, I like to just go ahead and save it as an object style. And then I don't have to worry about always having to go through back in here, adding all my stuff on. I can just quickly add it on. To see what I've done, you can just double click on that object style and you can kind of look through what effects that I put on there. You can also make changes to that object style when you're done, and you can name your object style. This is true for any style that you put on. So we'll go back here to the drop shadow. If you'll see under the appearance, it says I've got a drop shadow and I can click on that. So if I decide I want to move this up to an 80% opacity, I can do that without having to delete or change anything or add anything back in. I can just adjust the style. The last thing that we're going to do today is we're going to create our own object styles and save those in our object styles panel. For each of these shapes, I want you to go through under the FX and I want you to try out some of these other ones that we haven't done today because I want you to see what the satin looks like, bevel and emboss, inner glow, inner shadow, some of those. And I want you to put 3 object styles on each object. So make sure you do 3 different for the green and 3 different for the blue. And then once you have those, and I'll do one real quick just to kind of show you what I mean, we're going to set a few object styles and you have the object selected, we're going to go to the object style panel and we're just going to hit the plus sign. And it's automatically going to populate object style 1. And I'm going to double click on this and I'm going to change this to green. I think it's really important to name things like object styles, character styles, anything like that. Because if you get a lot of object styles, and I had left these object style 1, object style 2, object style 3, that's going to be much harder for me to know what it is that I have created. So I just think it's really important to name those so that you're not having to click on these to figure out which ones are which, and you can figure it out much more easily. And then you can always go back to the none. The only problem I have with that is if you had something in there before, like my color here was blue, it will remove the blue. So sometimes I find that it's easier to go back and undo what I've done in order to get back to my original, but that's not always possible. Last thing is I want you just to kind of talk to me about how do object styles help you work more efficiently? What does that save you from doing over and over? Hint, hint. Make sure you save your document and make sure you turn it in so that we can see that you have mastered object styles for today. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you next time. Thanks, friends.